All right, so maybe you're one of those type of business owners. You've taken a look at your overall revenue throughout the year of 2021. And you're saying to yourself, you're gaining some traction in your business. You're starting to see things go into the direction that you want your business to go. And this year, you're going to go out on a limb and you're going to say to yourself, I'm going to have a different goal in 2022. I want to go from where I am to right now to making $100,000 in total revenue in 2022. That's a good goal. Or you might even say, hey, I want to make $100,000 in net income in 2022. Great goal as well. But some of us are at the point where we're saying, hey, you know what? I just want to make sure that my business is actually on a path to growth. I want to make sure that I'm not stagnant, I'm not regressing. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to give you 15 tips that you can use as a new freight broker or a small freight broker, because what these tips are going to do is to help you to identify the things that you could be doing that may be stopping you from getting to the success that you want your business to achieve. So let's jump over into it. All right, the first thing that is really common that I see a lot throughout new freight brokers, small freight brokerages, is we have unrealistic expectations. When you come into a business like a freight brokerage, it's easy to get this idea that you're going to be making a whole lot of money and you're making that money relatively quickly. And that just is not how it works usually in business. In any business, it takes time for you to get the business in place, for you to get everything operational in place so that you can learn what you need to learn so that you can start making money. And a lot of times you see new freight brokers put the cart in front of the horse. They go out and they have these big thoughts in their mind. They're getting excited about the business. And I like that. I think it's important to get excited, but don't be unrealistic. Have a goal in your mind based off of what small businesses accomplish, not just some idea of, hey, I'm going to have this huge goal because one person went out, made a whole big ton of money in a very short period of time. That's usually a very small fraction of people. Most of us are going to labor for a longer period of time. Usually, especially as a freight brokerage, at least for a 12-month period, you're probably going to be learning how to do what it is that you're doing so that you can build the income, the revenue that you want to. That is going to take time. So come into it with realistic expectations. Set realistic goals that you can actually accomplish, not something that's so far-fetched that you can't even, see that happening in 2 or 3 or 4 years, let alone 1 year. Because what I see that happens most often when people set these really lofty goals, especially in the early part of their business, is that they get really frustrated when these things don't come to pass. But what they realize, or don't realize, I should say, is that they don't have the infrastructure in place in their business yet to even handle the type of money that they want to make coming in. So it takes time, and it's a process. You cannot get outside of the process. You have to go through the process in order to get your business to move in the direction that you want to move in and for it to make the money that you want it to make. It has to be prepared to do that. And you, of course, have to prepare to do that. So don't get to thinking in your mind that it has to happen right now. It will happen. Go through the process, go through the steps. The next problem that I see is new and small freight brokers focus on the wrong things. It's easy to focus on trivial things, the smaller things in your business, because it gives you a sense that you're doing something. And a lot of times that's what a lot of new business owners want. They want this feeling that I'm busy, I'm getting things accomplished. But to not focus on the major things is to focus on the wrong things. What do I mean by that? There's one thing that I think a business should focus on more so than anything else. It just makes sense. It just passes the common sense test because you're in business. And in order for your business to be successful, you have a product or a service. In our case, as freight brokers, we have a service that we're selling to someone. That someone is a customer. So that should be, or that person should be the focus of your business. You should be focused on acquiring customers. You should be obsessing over how you can better serve customers, figuring out what customers like, what they don't like. The way that you do that is by engaging customers and starting to work with those customers to understand what it is that they like and what they don't like. That is very, very important. So many times, new freight brokers, small freight brokers just focus on going out and talking to carriers. going out and talking to carriers about freight that they may have coming at some point. And they feel good about themselves because they went and talked to carriers. But to me, that is oftentimes, so many times, a waste of time. There's a certain way to do that, but don't go out and look for carriers when you haven't secured freight. Get freight. That's what freight brokers are known for. To have freight when nobody else has freight, to have trucks when nobody else has trucks, because we specialize in freight and we specialize in being able to get assets to move that freight. So focus on the major thing. Focus on acquiring customers and learning how to serve that customer. Next up, you simply spend too much money to get started. For some reason, new freight brokers or small freight brokerages, they start out with the idea in their mind that the more money they spend, the better off they'll be, because they'll have better tools in place and they'll be able to do things in a much more efficient way. Usually it works opposite of that. When you go out and spend a whole lot of money in the front part of your business, when you haven't established a customer base yet, you aren't moving freight, so you aren't making any money. Now what you're doing is you're adding cost to your bottom line. Because remember, although these are expenses of the business, guess what? You have to pay those expenses. So the more expense that we put on in the front of our business, the more money we're calling to come out of our own pockets, because the business is not yet making money. And then you're putting more pressure on the business to make money. I don't think it's a good idea to start out with very expensive tools. I think it's a good idea to start out with a basic freight brokerage, one that's costing you $1,000 or less a month. And then as you start to move freight, as you start to gain traction in your business now is telling you, hey, it's time to go out and get a new TMS. It's time to go out and add some features to my load board. When that happens, then you go out and you make those decisions. It's about putting money back into your business, but we don't want to go out and put that money up front because there's nothing being generated at that point. Put the money in when the business calls for you to put it in. Don't just go out and get random tools because you think that the tool is going to move the freight. No, you have to get the freight to put in it, and that is what everything revolves around. Everything boils down to you getting the freight. So let's get the freight. Let's start moving freight. And then when the business calls and tells us, hey, it's time to get a new tool, we go get that tool based off of customers are demanding more of us now. Next up, you don't make money a priority. A lot of people talk about coming into business, being their own boss, controlling their own time. All of that is good. It's great to be able to go on vacations when you get ready without having to ask anybody. But all of that is predicated on you going out and securing the bag. And we don't put enough focus, enough attention on the whole reason why we come into business, and that is to make money. When you think about your business, you have to think about in terms of how much money did I make, especially when we come down to the end of the year like we are right now. How much money did I produce this year? And the reason why we have to be so focused on money is because in order for you to stay in business, you have to continually producing money over and over and over again. That's how you stay in business. The way to produce money is to provide a valuable service. Be of value to someone else, to a lot of someone else's, if that's the way you choose to go. But we have to be valuable to our customers. We have to make money. If we don't make money, we won't be in business for long. I know you hear a lot of gurus. A lot of people start off telling you, hey, don't focus on money. I disagree with that. Most of those guys you hear say themselves, when I first got started, I used to focus a whole lot on money. It was, the thing that I had to do. And that's how they start to get a lot of money. In order to have money, I think money has to be a focus. You have to be able to focus on that. That's just like being an NBA player or NFL player. You have to focus on doing that to be the best at that. When you think about the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, the LeBron James, they live, sleep, and eat what it is that they do. We have to be the same way in our professions, and we have to be money focused so that we can start to accumulate money. Now, I'm not saying that your whole business, your whole life revolves around money, but I am saying it has to be a priority. You have to make money a priority so that you can stay in business, you can flourish, and you can help others to do what it is that they want to do. If you're not making money, there's not much help you're going to be able to be to someone else. How can you help someone when you're not having that revenue come in to help you to continue to provide the services that you provide. No, you have to have revenue. Make it a focus. And now let's talk about the big one, the time factor. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. Everybody wants to be a successful business, but people don't want to put in the time that's necessary to become a successful business. And that time is specific to you. It might be different from me. I know when I first started my business, I was putting 12 to 16 hours per day. And the reason for that was because I didn't know anything about the business. I had to learn the business. I had to learn how to make money in the business. I had to learn how to service customers. So that took time, and I had to invest the time in the business in order to grow the business, in order for me to get out of the business what I wanted to get out of it. And too often, people forget about the time sacrifice. Everybody wants a successful business, but when it comes down to committing the time, there are far fewer people that are willing to do that. A lot of people want to talk about business. A lot of people play business, but when it comes down to it, all of that stuff, you can do that. That's pretending. It's much better to be than pretend to be. And when you're being something, you have to put the time into it. There's no way around that. I cannot tell you of a way that you can get around that because I had to do that. So I can tell you how it went for me. And it was about spending time in the business, learning what I needed to learn in order to start producing. That's what you have to do when you first get started. Spend the time. Time. Like they say, location. Spend the time in the business so that you can grow the business. All right, so another thing that I see people doing way too soon is hiring freight agents, hiring employees. For some reason, people think that when you go out and you hire an employee, that somehow means that you're successful. But that doesn't mean that at all. That just means that you've acquired another expense. Now you have to pay an employee, you have to pay payroll taxes and all of that good stuff. So it's not in your best interest in most situations to hire someone right away. There needs to be some things in place, some infrastructure in place. You need to be able to go out and do what it is that you're going to be teaching your freight agent, the person that's working with you. You need to be able to do that and then teach it. Because if you're looking for that person to come in right away and just start producing, that's not very likely to happen. They don't have anything to build from. You have to start the foundation so that they can have a foundation to build upon. And having a foundation, to me, is having a standard operating procedures, having policies in place, the way you handle certain issues. All of that stuff should be written out in writing so that you can pass on a smart book to your freight agent so that in the event they had different problems, they can source that smart book to get that information to keep moving through different issues that you have. Otherwise, you'll have to receive phone calls every other 5 or 10 minutes with someone asking you questions. Now, I know in mindset you're saying when I hire someone else, I can go ahead and start hiring multiple people and have more than one person moving freight, and I'm getting a piece of all of that. That sounds great in theory, but it's a lot more to it than that. I want you to think that over before you make that decision. And usually at least a year in business, year and a half, 2 years maybe before you go in and start hiring anybody. Now guess what's next? The fact that some people start a freight broker business and they don't have a factoring company. I just don't think that's a good idea at all, especially if you don't have a large sum of money that you can finance your loads with. Because if you don't have a large sum of money and you don't have a factoring company, then you can only move as many loads as you have money to move. Because as freight brokers, we're responsible for paying the carrier once the load is complete. So I think it's a mistake to go in without a factoring company because you're going in without financial backing. So you can only move as many loads as you can pay for. And what that usually leads to is you have to tell a shipper, okay, I got to stop right now because I've moved the 10 loads that I can move for this month. You don't want to be in that situation. I think it's best to have a factoring company so you'll have that financial backing so you can move as many loads as you can possibly move without being concerned how you're going to pay for those loads. And believe it or not, another thing that I see very often is we open businesses and we expect people just to start running in because we've started a business. Everybody just is supposed to know that Brandon started a freight broker business. No, it does not work that way. You have to advertise yourself, your business. You have to make it known that you're in business. And sometimes that's going to be paid advertising. But when you first get started, you may not be doing a whole lot of paid advertising because you may not have the funds to do that. But you certainly need to be putting your name out there. All of the social media outlets, your profiles should be talking about what it is that you're doing in your freight brokerage, your new freight brokerage, your service, how you provide that service. Talk yourself up to people so they know what it is that you're doing. That is not a secret. That's not something that you should be hiding. That's something that you should be putting out front so that people can figure out very quickly what it is that you do. Very, very important to make sure that that happens. If you don't, you'll find yourself hoping that you get business. You'll be using these same traditional methods of calling customers unannounced, and that only gets a certain result. So we don't want to keep doing the same thing. You're going to have to look at some advertising, some paid advertising at some point. Advertising in some of the major newspapers, like our main newspaper, which is, I don't have one. Oh yeah, I do. I have one right here. Transport Topics. This is definitely something that you would want to have an advertisement in, because this is the main newspaper of the trucking business, Transport Topics. So shippers, of course, read these publications. So we want to make sure that we are advertising sometimes, and it's not really very expensive to advertise in a magazine or a newspaper like this. I would definitely challenge you to give them a call, shoot them an email, and find out what you would have to do to run a small ad. Now, this one will work a little bit opposite of the one that I told you earlier about spending too much money. We also don't want to dismiss the essentials, the things that we need in place to operate efficiently as a freight broker. Sometimes I see freight brokers start their businesses and they say that I'm not going to have a TMS. I don't need a load board. Well, these are some things that you have to have in order to operate in the most efficient way. If you don't have a load board, how do you go out and get rates? How do you get rates to take back to your shippers? How do you go out and measure in lanes what's happening in those lanes? You don't have a load board to do that. And if you're just trying to Google that, I can promise you that's not going to work. Make sure you're getting the essential tools, the tools that are needed. You're going to need a load board. You're going to need a TMS. You certainly are going to need a freight factoring company, in my opinion. So take a look at those things, take a look at your setup, and see if it's a need for you. I can pretty much certainly guarantee you that a freight factoring company, a load board, and a TMS are three things that you will definitely need in place to operate at your most efficient level. Now, the next mistake that I see that is often made is people come into the business and they think that they already know how to operate a business. They think that they are excellent business owners already. But what we usually find out is that they don't know how to operate a business. They really have never operated a business successfully. They've just had a business. They may have been in business for a period of time, but they didn't make any real money. They didn't pay taxes for the business. So you really haven't had the experience of operating a full-fledged business. So when you don't have that experience, what you need to do is read. You need to read about business owners. You need to read about people who have done really well in the space, the challenges they've had, how they've gotten through those challenges, so that you can enrich yourself, enrich your own experiences through the experiences of others. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is misunderstanding the competition. Some of you think that C.H. Robinson is your competition. You think TQL is your competition. I'm here today to tell you that they are not your competition. These companies are really big freight brokerages. They have a whole lot of years of experience. You are not in that category. I am not in that category. I've been moving freight for 7 years, but that's a different world. That's a much bigger company. So you don't even worry about comparing yourself to a C.H. Robinson or a TQL. Yes, who you should be comparing yourself to is a company like mine, a small freight brokerage, the same as yours. Don't compare yourself to a TQL or a C.H. Robinson. Now, is it okay to look at some of the things that they do and maybe start to incorporate some of that into your business at some point? Sure, but that's not your competition. But it probably would even be better to look at smaller freight brokerages, find out what they are doing, and then look to add some of those things to your business. That way, you can kind of keep up with what's going on, but you don't try and go out and do things that are outside of what you can afford to do. All right, now this next one that I'm going to share is probably a problem that all of us want at some point, and that's having a problem of too much cash on hand. When you have too much cash on hand, that eventually becomes a problem because you have too much money that's not working. When you have money in a savings account, it's not gaining much interest. And on top of that, now we're dealing with over 5% inflation. So you don't want to have cash in savings accounts, in checkings accounts, that's not working. You want enough cash in your checkings accounts to take care of daily expenses, monthly expenses. You want enough cash in your savings account, probably, if you choose to go this route, is to have a emergency savings account so that you can take care of any emergencies that the business may have. Me personally, I only have $300 in a savings account. I'm not interested in having excess amounts of money inside a savings account because it's not working. I want my dollars working. I want my dollars earning more money because I understand money has a job. It has to go out and produce other dollars. And in order for it to do that, I have to position money. I have to put it in certain investments that allow for it to do its job. If I don't do that, I'm failing myself and I'm failing my business. And when you first start your business, yes, you should be focused on maintaining, creating one stream of income. That's, of course, you moving loads to make money. But after you master that, after you start making money consistently as a freight brokerage, now you need to start turning your attention to how you can make income in a different way. You don't want your freight broker business that the only way it can make money is that it has to move loads. Yes, that's the main way. That is your bread and butter, but you also want some additional sources of income, some additional ways that you make money through your business. For example, I do freight broker videos. I do videos on YouTube where I can go out and make extra money just by doing videos. That's a consistent income stream that comes in every single month. So if I have a bad month where I've been moving freight and things haven't gone as well as I would have liked them to go, then I have another source of income that I've been nurturing that hopefully it can take up the slack when freight brokering fall off. And when you have multiple streams, you have 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, that's going to be even better as you continue to build your business. Now, yes, again, I do think it's important to focus on the primary first. Get that rolling. Start to get money coming in consistently. But once you do that, then it's time to turn your attention to making other streams of income a priority as well. Now, next, what I want to talk to you about is not being overwhelmed by burnout. All of us go through that at some point. How could you not? When you're spending as much time as we spend on our business, then surely you're going to go through points where you get burned out. But you have to manage it and manage it well. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself time. You're giving your family time. You're giving yourself and things away from the business time because that's very important too. You don't want to overwork yourself and then become so burned out that you don't want to continue to move forward. Now, don't get me wrong. There will come times, no two ways about it, that you're just going to get to the point where you throw your hands up. And it's okay to take you a break during those times. But don't take those prolonged breaks where you don't want to go back to it. It's kind of like going to the gym. As long as you're going to the gym and you're making it a part of your lifestyle, you can keep going. But when you stop going and you go prolonged periods of time without going, then you don't want to go. It makes it even harder for you to go. So do your best to manage that situation so you don't become overwhelmed and give up. And last but not least, let's address giving up. The one way that you can assure yourself that you will never accomplish your dream of building a successful freight broker business is to give up. And it's easy to give up. What I want to encourage you to do is to keep moving forward. Sometimes you can be right there. You can be not very far away at all from achieving the success that you want to achieve. But sometimes we become so overwhelmed so that we give up. Don't give up on your dream. Don't give up on your goals. Keep fighting all the way until you accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you today. I certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you don't remember anything, please remember this. When you choose to do what's easy in your freight broker business, oftentimes things will be very hard for you. But when you choose to do the hard things, when you put those hard things first, things will be much easier. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about the freight broker business, don't forget, I'm going to leave that 5-video series link in the description. You can check it out. It'll show me in the office moving freight, talking to shippers, talking to carriers, so you can get a better understanding of how the business works. And then if you want to learn more about how we use load boards to source carriers, go ahead and post our loads. And as a rate sourcing tool, I'll leave a free link right here. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.